I hope you are ready for the conclusions. When I posted this one, a colleague came and asked me, are these the conclusions? Yes. I said, that means that you have brought them from at home. Yes, of course. I'm trying to be a contemporary teacher. A few years ago in Mississippi, I was allowed to visit a grade 6 or 7 in a school there. And they were teaching and learning, I suppose, English American literature. And all of the students were sitting around there with their textbooks, of course, with short stories, poems, and other kinds of texts. Fine. And the teaching, the instruction, as they call it there, went on. After a few minutes, I noticed that the teacher had the same kind of book as the students, the same cover, the same picture on it, only it was 3 times as thick. I wondered whether it was for old people who needed to have bigger fonts and so on. It wasn't. I was allowed to look at it in the break, and I could see that the teacher's book contained all of the texts. Okay. It also contained the questions she could pose and the answers she could accept. So she was really well prepared for the test. That's what I'm doing here too. So you'll get the conclusions from home, because students' activities don't really matter. No, not really. But I want to give you a very short introduction again to the themes, some of the tendencies that we've been seeing in the empirical research we have been doing here, and then the political recommendations, because that is at the end of the day what we are out for. We need to find both the empirical evidence, as we call it, and the political recommendations. And both of those are prepared from at home. And then I will put in some of my observations of your discussions here. It can only be very short ones, of course, because I didn't hear all of it. I didn't write all of it down. I am going to do that in a short time, because everything you have been writing on the flip charts will be written and compressed, I think, into a few pages and go into the to the final report. But also I want to give you a flavor of, will the discussion here maybe have influenced, or will it influence what we are doing on the recommendations? I think some of them will be influenced by it, but see how it looks now, and then hear my comments to it. So that's the idea with it. And I'll walk through it work group by work group. The first one is the autonomy for equity and learning, and trends in autonomy were that, well, of course, autonomy, if you look at the dictionary, you'll find that it is defined as self-determination, self-governance of different kinds. What we see is, as OECD calls it, school autonomy, diverse models of decentralization from state to region, municipality to schools, and so on. And we can see there 2 major trends. One is decentralization of management of resources and operations. That is what the OECD in the Improving School Leadership 2008 calls running a small business. And then a re-centralization of curriculum, national standards, and accountabilities. That is what is, it's not what the OECD called leading to outcomes, but I would put it into that category. So what we see are 2 different, very contradictory, maybe, trends in autonomy politics in Europe, both getting out and getting in. The recommendations are to ensure equal access to education, to ensure sufficient autonomy on levels to give room for equity, quality of education, to preserve teacher autonomy in developing curricula and in teaching, to ensure leadership education so school leaders are able to lead for equity also in times of scarcity of resources. So these are the recommendations as they stand now. And I think I could hear the echo of a lot of them in some of your comments. But before I come back to your comments, I will take the other ones because you discussed the accountability work group too. Accountability is for equity in learning. Accountability is defined as responsibility for actions, decisions, processes, outcomes, and policies. And we can see quite a lot of accountability categories, and they have been mentioned in the text there. Some more focusing on centrally defined categories: managerial and bureaucratic accountability, market-oriented accountability. And it seems that there is a less focus on public accountability, professional accountability, cultural ethical accountability. And if that is so, if that's a correct observation, then there's something that needs to be done, I think. The recommendation says that accountability should serve both the political and managerial purpose of control, the social purpose of equity, and the educational purpose of learning. Because acknowledging that, of course, a political system has a legitimate right, obligation to control what they are in charge of. Should be comprehensive in scope and build on defensible, empirical-based theories. School leaders should be educated to translate external accountabilities to internal sense and practice. Yeah. These are the recommendations as they stand now. When I looked at your flip charts, I don't distinguish between accountability and autonomy in this one because I didn't see it there. I have two others. One category is what is the relations between schools and the state and so on, and there was quite a lot of interesting comments there. It's about democracy, it's about autonomy, it's about influence, and maybe the politicians not wanting to get or to lose power. The importance of two-way consultations and having many people involved in decision making. And then, of course, also the problem with high expectation and low trust, and using research. When it comes to the teacher involvement in it, it says, let me see, yeah, participation should be accompanied by responsibilities, raising awareness of that the differences between talking about something and the actions, and also another place on listening. Decision making is there too, and using research, and teacher education should contain something about leadership. One thing I especially noticed was that several groups, I think at least 2 or 3, had the accounts on the flip chart in several countries. It's not an overall account, it was for Poland, Hungary, and whatever the states were. And I think that is, to me, a comment on trying not to forget the context. And I think that is very important. There was one piece of good advice, I think, for school leaders on this one, that is, ask Dr. Phil. The next work group were distributed leadership. Well, the trends. Oh, they're gone. But the trends are exactly the same as those ones Nora told about the diversity of it and stuff like that. The recommendations is to recommend distributed leadership at all levels, European, national, regional, local, and school, and developing leadership opportunities and capabilities of everyone in school. Spreading it out, also some of the theorists on educational distributed leadership talk about spreading leadership across a lot of people in schools. So those are the recommendations there. And yeah, the trends are here. Okay. to change them. Complexity on definitions, influence and dimensions, leadership roles, influence and learning, and stuff like that. Okay. Policy response. Was it too quick? Okay. You just saw it with Nora. And I can have a sip.
All of the presentations will be uploaded on the portal, so don't worry about keeping notes of anything.
Keeping notes is a good learning activity.
Yeah, okay, but if you don't have time, keep the notes.
No, you're right. Okay. And the other one, it was together with the that was autonomy, yes. Policy response to trends. Educational policy is very context-bound, centrally focused or more decentralized. We can see very big spread over Europe. Some countries are very centralized and some are decentralized. But there seems to be a general trend toward what I call neoliberal focus on market management and performativity. I know that one group, and maybe two, didn't like the word neoliberal, but I don't like rain either. So I think there are some general trends, and we can name them whatever. I think we must be better to put content to it. Policy does not prescribe but create circumstances that are enacted locally. That is a very important note, I think, in the background paper. And policy can constrain but not construct, so local leadership is critical. I think that is very hopeful to say that there is room and there is a need for local leadership, because policy cannot fill all the gaps there. The recommendations on policy response is that to move policy on leadership for equity and learning to the center of the political agenda. If we do that, then all problems will be solved. To involve all relevant stakeholders in formulating and enacting policies. That is coming again in many of the answers, to involve all stakeholders in the processes and so on. So it is very important message from here. Educating school leaders, again the trend has disappeared. So I should give you the observations on the policy response. I'm not sure. Yeah, well, it was stated several times that stakeholders should be involved. It was stated that school leaders should be educated in order to find out what is happening with them and what the play they are participating in. There was a question about how to have the teachers and students and so on to accept the accountabilities, the new accountabilities. And there was, I think, a very important one saying that if the criteria and the ways they are done openly, and if the support to it, the financial support to it, is sustained and the professionals are supported, then maybe we can work properly with it. And then educating school leaders. School leaders should contain analysis of educational governance. School leadership education should contain relations between national reforms and school development. Oh, that's the trend again. And when I looked at the papers now around there, I think they display the dilemma in many groups, saying we know that school leadership is very contextualized, so school leadership education should also be contextualized. At the same time, we want to learn from others. We want to get inspiration and so on. And there seems to be an issue in how to find the balances there, so that we don't say that one size fits all, but we can get inspiration in many ways to it. So, well, that's what I got out of this day. I hope that you got more out of it. So, I think that's it. So, now we have...